On se sent en famille en ce sens que la Russie est une famille aussi pour l'Afrique.
Vive le président Ibrahim Traore!
Vive le président Ibrahim Traore! Ce coup d'État est parfaitement illégitime.
With the world closely monitoring the events in Niger, following a military takeover that deposed President Mohamed Bazoum's democratically installed government in late July 2023 and established a military regime whose future is quite uncertain, Burkina Faso has become the latest external victim, or rather casualty, of those developments in Niger. We say this because on the night waking to August 7, 2023, France announced that it will be suspending its development aid and budget support to Burkina Faso, effective immediately. According to a notice served by the French embassy in Burkina Faso, the suspension was indefinite, meaning that it would stay in effect until further notice from Paris. This suspension came just 2 days after France sending the people of Burkina Faso the best of wishes as they quietly commemorated their proclamation of independence on August 5. It also came nearly 6 months after France announcing that it had withdrawn all its remaining troops from Burkina Faso, troops that were engaged in counterinsurgency and counterterrorism operations in the Sahel since 2013. It's in the aftermath of these developments that we have brought to you the following 10 reasons why France made that decision to suspend aid to the country with the world's youngest head of state. Number 1. The suspension of aid is to serve as retaliation for Burkina Faso's decision to stand with the Niger military junta.
The
transitional governments of Burkina Faso and Mali invite the living forces to be ready and mobilized, to lend a hand to the people of Niger in these dark hours of Pan-Africanism.
Of course, this is the most obvious reason. That since the military junta in Burkina Faso had vowed to stand with their counterparts in Niger in case of a military intervention, France, which is against the coup, had no choice but to slightly cut ties with Burkina Faso, and the aid was a good starting point. Number 2. Reaction to Ibrahim Traore's invitation of Russia into Africa to help fight neocolonialism. At the second Russia-Africa summit, President Ibrahim Traore praised Russia as Africa's true friend, unlike the West. A friend who is more of family, since Moscow has never attempted to colonize Africa, and therefore is invited into Africa for any kind of partnerships.
Pour ce qui concerne le Burkina Faso, aujourd'hui nous sommes confrontés depuis plus de 8 ans à la forme de manifestation la plus barbare, la plus violente du néocolonialisme, de l'impérialisme. L'esclavage qu'on tend encore à nous imposer.
Then, since France, together with other NATO members, has imposed various sanctions against Russia and has been running a wide variety of anti-Putin campaigns, the suspension of aid is meant to tell the people of Burkina Faso to go and get the same from Putin if they see Moscow as a better partner than them. Number 3. The suspension is meant to give Burkina Faso a taste of the self-reliance and independence it was demanding. Over the last couple of years, Burkina Faso and other Francophone West African countries have been blaming their economic woes on France, accusing France of perpetuating neocolonialism. Therefore, the suspension of aid is meant to let them to have a taste of self-reliance that they were demanding day after the other, since a free country should be able to stand on its own. Number 4. The suspension is meant to jeopardize efforts being made by military juntas in the Sahel region to establish a united federation in West Africa. While in Russia for the second Russia-Africa summit, President Ibrahim Traore revealed in an interview on Sputnik that there are growing efforts by him and Mali's Assimi Goïta to unite various countries in West Africa, especially the Francophone states. That, as of today, the armies of Burkina Faso and Mali are as good as one, and that Ouagadougou and Bamako are working on founding a Pan-African Federation which will be open to newcomers like Guinea and any other willing country.
Bien sûr, nous avons lancé l'idée. Nous sommes en train d'évaluer actuellement beaucoup de choses avec le Mali, surtout sur le domaine économique. Sur le côté défense, déjà, on a des accords, ça c'est déjà scellé. Les Maliens viennent chez nous, c'est la même armée.
Of course, he also confessed that ECOWAS is strongly against the idea of such a union, but he said that the idea is being pushed by young people all over the region, citing that earlier this year, crowds of young people walked 860 kilometers on foot between Bamako and Ouagadougou to express their support for the Burkina Mali Federation. While expressing his support for the same, Traore made it clear that it's only by uniting that the struggle against outside domination can be overcome. Therefore, France's suspension of the aid and weakening of the Burkinabe economy is in one way meant to jeopardize such efforts of creating a Pan-African federation, a federation that will most likely be composed of members who are suspended from ECOWAS. A federation that will also challenge ECOWAS dominance, thereby making it hard for foreign powers to influence those West African countries that fall outside ECOWAS. Number 5. It's meant to pile pressure on Ibrahim Traore's government to embrace a civilian government and not to extend the military rule. Even though it's clear that Ibrahim Traore is a transitional president who is supposed to facilitate democratic elections that will see Burkina Faso get a new civilian president in July 2024, France seems concerned that Traore, or rather the Burkinabe military junta, might fail to honor its promise and forcefully stay in power for longer. Therefore, this suspension of aid is meant to send a message that a civilian government is what France would like to see in Burkina Faso, and that Traore shouldn't entertain any fishy ideas of extending his rule beyond July 2024. Number 6. To serve as retaliation for Burkina Faso's continued denouncing of France and accusing of France as a thief. From activists to civilians and even state leaders themselves, the people of Burkina Faso have been publicly denouncing France, accusing it of stealing their resources to enrich itself while leaving them in poverty. The suspension is a way of France exiting from Burkina Faso and retaliating against those accusations. Number 7. To show support for Mohamed Bazoum. Emmanuel Macron was a good friend of Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum, who was deposed by the military that he really trusted. As a way to affect the brotherhood, saying that, "An enemy to my friend is my enemy," France suspended aid to Burkina Faso as a way to show that Traore is now France's enemy since he's in support of an enemy of Bazoum. Number 8. The suspension is consistent with France's support for ECOWAS. In his reaction to the military takeover and warnings from ECOWAS that Niger's military junta should reinstate President Mohamed, Emmanuel Macron said that France supports all efforts being made to restore a constitutional order in Niger. Then, since ECOWAS has balkanized militaries that are in support of the Niger military junta, the Burkinabe military being among them, it was only right for France to effect moves that are consistent with its support for ECOWAS. Number 9. The suspension serves as a reaction to Wagner's presence in Burkina Faso. After the withdrawal of its forces in Burkina Faso, the Burkinabe military signed contracts with Russian PMCs like Wagner Group for counterinsurgency and counter-terrorism operations in the country. Then, since part of France's aid was being used to pay Wagner mercenaries, the suspension is one way of preventing French money from getting its way into Russian pockets at this time when NATO is doing all it can to cut Russia's revenue streams. Number 10. The suspension helps keep France free from blame that it's financing anti-Western, anti-ECOWAS or anti-democracy campaigns in the Sahel. Since part of France's budget support aid to Burkina Faso went to the military, it would have been awkward for France to finance a Burkinabe military that supports a Niger military, yet France is in support of the ECOWAS military that's against the Niger military.
Le peuple burkinabé a décidé de lutter contre l'île terroriste en mesure de relancer son développement. Dans cette lutte, des vaillants peuples, des vaillantes populations se sont engagées à prendre les armes face au terrorisme, ceux que nous avons affectueusement appelés les VDP, des volontaires. Nous sommes surpris de voir les impérialistes traiter ces VDP de milices et de tout type. C'est décevant, parce qu'en Europe, lorsque des peuples prennent les armes pour défendre leur patrie, on les traite de patriotes. Mais là n'est pas le problème. Ce qui est le problème, c'est de voir des chefs d'État africains qui n'apportent rien à ces peuples qui se battent, mais qui chantent la même chose que les impérialistes en nous traitant de milices, en nous traitant donc d'hommes qui ne respectent pas les droits de l'homme. De quel droit de l'homme parle-t-on? Nous nous offusquons contre cela et c'est honteux. Il faut que nous, chefs d'État africains, nous arrêtons de nous comporter donc en marionnettes qui dansent à chaque fois que les impérialistes tirent sur les ficelles. Hier, le président Vladimir Poutine a annoncé donc l'envoi de céréales en Afrique. Nous sommes bien contents. Nous lui disons merci pour cela. Mais aussi, c'est un message passé à nos chefs d'État africains. Parce qu'au prochain forum, nous ne devrons pas venir ici sans avoir assuré, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas la guerre, l'autosuffisance alimentaire de nos peuples.
Do you support France for suspending its aid to Burkina Faso? Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe before leaving.